Okay, gross domestic product. We all know that gross domestic product is a measure for economic growth. And there are two approaches, the expenditure approach and the income approach. So the expenditure approach has the formula Y meaning gross domestic product, that's the national income, is equal to C, which means consumer spending, plus I, meaning investment spending, plus G, government spending, plus X minus M. So that's exports minus imports. Okay, so you just add them all up and you will have the total spending in a country. So X minus M, that's exports minus imports, that's actually the balance of trade. As much as possible, we want to have more exports than imports. This will give us a positive figure. So it adds up to our national income or the GDP. Our income approach, which is actually just the total income in a country. So Y is equal to, that's the same as GDP. Y therefore is equal to W, meaning wages, plus I, meaning interest, plus R, meaning rent, and plus P, which is profits from entrepreneurship or profits from business. So the income approach adds up the total wages earned by every individual in a country, the total interest earned by individuals, entities in a country, rents, rents earned by those who are renting out their properties, for example, in a country, and all profits made by businessmen in a country. Expenditure approach and income approach are basically the same because if you think about it, somebody's income is also equivalent to someone else's expenses. The approach for computing the GDP is just the same, but we come up with the same value except that we use different representations for computing the GDP. So we have different inputs. The GDP has its weaknesses, of course, and we probably noticed that a country with a very high GDP doesn't actually mean that there's less poverty in a country and people have a very good standard of living. Unfortunately, in reality, this doesn't always translate. Experts have been suggesting a better way of measuring economic growth. And one measure is the IDI, the Inclusive Development Index. The IDI is based on the notion that most citizens do not evaluate their country's economic progress by GDP, but by their household standard of living. So this tries to give us a better picture of economic progress in a country because the GDP concentrates only or focuses only on total production in a country, but it does not consider the standard of living of the people in a country, whether the people are getting by economically, whether they are content or satisfied with their lifestyle and how they are living in that country. So the IDI or the Inclusive Development Index have three very important pillars. Okay, we have inclusion, and then we have growth and development, and we have intergenerational equity. So under inclusion, there is GDP. So that's production, total production in a country. It also includes life expectancy. How long do people live their lives in a country? Employment is whether people have jobs in that country, how many are employed. Labor productivity is interesting because it measures how productive a person is or normally people are in that country. So it measures productivity by counting the number of units produced by a person in an hour. So how many units of products or goods or services can an average citizen make in a particular hour? Growth and development so living below the poverty line. So for intergenerational equity, we consider dependency ratio. Dependency ratio is how much of the people depend on other people in order to live, meaning what percent of the population depend on the working class, like how much of the young generation. These people depend so much on the working class and the taxes that they provide, because the working class are virtually the ones supporting the young generation. Also the elderly, so they cannot work anymore, they are non-productive, so they need support of the working class, the taxes paid by the working class. The net savings is the rate of savings of the government and the household. Savings are a potential source of capital. Public debt is how much debt does the country have, especially foreign debt, because this debt is shouldered by the people. Carbon intensity is the carbon footprint left behind by the country's industry and commercial activities, how pollution affects the country. It's a measure of the pollution levels in a country. So for 2018, Inclusive Development Index, the scores are based on a 1 to 7 scale, 1 being the worst and 7 the best. What is the IDI score of the Philippines? We are currently at number 38. There's also a color schematic available in order to further understand the status of the country. Red code, a red color, that means the country is actually receding. So that's really bad. Green is advancing, just like Vietnam. The most inclusive emerging and developing Asian countries are the Philippines, ranks number 8. In the top 10 advanced economy, the leading country is Norway. So that ends our topic on the GDP and the IDI. Thank you very much for listening and have a nice day.